They're dead, Dave.
What, Captain Hollister?
Everybody's dead, Dave.
What, Todd Hunter? What, Selby? Not Jen.
He's dead, Dave. Everybody is dead. Everybody is dead, Dave.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Everybody's Dead Dave, a Red Dwarf review podcast, hosted normally by myself, Adam Martyn, and my co-host.
That's me, Phil Hawkins. Hello.
Indeed it is. And today, it is that time again. We are joined by a special guest. We are joined by Miles Taylor. How are you, pal?
Hey guys, how you doing? It's great to be on the pod. I'm really grateful to be here chatting about Red Dwarf, which is what I don't usually get to do. So this is a lot of fun for me.
It's a lot of our guests have said that, haven't they, Phil?
Yeah.
They come on and they say, "Oh, we don't usually get to talk about Red Dwarf."
That's the thing, because a lot of us are usually focused on other franchises, be it Doctor Who or Star Wars or whatever it is. So it's just a great chance to chat about my comfort program, really, and a delight. A delight to be chatting about my favourite series as well. So this is great.
Ace. Oh, okay. Well, for anyone who's new to the show, what it's normally the conceit is it's two different perspectives. Phil has been watching for several decades, since the 90s. This is my first time around. This is my first rodeo with the show. Every episode is new to me. So where do you sit, Miles? Where are you with Red Dwarf? Like, are you a long-time viewer or fairly recent? Or
It's an interesting one, because like how I got into Doctor Who, my relationship with Red Dwarf isn't just a straight line. It's not a case of I heard about it and then I started watching, because I remember back in 2009-ish, I walked into the living room. My dad was flicking through programs, and he'd landed on one, and there's a scene on screen with a guy with dreadlocks and a leather jacket, and another guy in a blue suit with a H on his head. And he saw me at the door, and he was like, "Oh, Miles, this is a sci-fi comedy. You might like this."
yeah.
And me being a huge Doctor Who fan at the time, I just went, "It's not Doctor Who though, is it? I'm not going to bother watching that." But I later realised that the programme that he'd been watching was Red Dwarf, and worked out that the episode that it flicked on must have been on Dave, because it was Back to Earth, the Series 9 thing.
Yeah.
So you've got that to look forward to, Adam, when that comes about.
Oh, I've heard many things about the Dave era so far.
It's an interesting one. But yeah, anyway, about 4 or 5 years after that, kept hearing about Red Dwarf on podcasts and YouTube and things, and I thought I should probably check this out. And I thought I'll see whereabouts I can find it. All the episodes are on YouTube. Naughty, I know, but that was where they all were. Binged through them all, roughly from the start, and loved it. Asked for the DVD box set for my birthday that year, and the rest, as they say, is history. I've been a fan ever since.
So when you got the box set, what did it include? Was it the Series 1 to 8 box set?
It was the Series 1 to 8 box set. It's the one that's called Just the Shows, and it's got the pictures of all the cast on it. So that's kind of where I started, and then I got Back to Earth, and then jumped into the Dave era stuff. So
sure.
It was roughly, once I did get into it, it was a kind of a linear thing.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun ride, and it's become one of those programs for me which is a real comfort one. So I love coming back to it, and I love chatting about it, because it just gives me the warm fuzzies, really. It's perfect.
Can't beat the warm fuzzies. Can't beat it. And
I mean, for me, this is like I'd say it's my third full watch through of the entire series. I started off just watching the occasional episode, because it was still on originally when I was a kid, when I was about 7, and it was on about the series we're talking about now. This is the series that first introduced me to the show, Series 6, and I just sort of caught it occasionally on telly and got into it that way. And then I went back and rewatched it when it first came out on DVD when I was at uni, and then I rewatched it again on DVD, and now this is like the third kind of full run through of it I've gone for.
Oh, well, Series 6 is what we're focusing on today. Episode 3 of Series 6, which is Gunmen of the Apocalypse. And to kick things off, we get this lovely black and white, almost noir style opening. And I've got to be honest, even though my mind was like, because, I've watched 6 series of this show now, I kind of know what their game is, but I knew this was probably like, a gag. But part of me was like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if a whole episode of Red Dwarf was like this, in that sort of black and white, still with the comedy, but in that black and white noir style? Because I really like it personally. But what did you two think? Are you fans of that sort of classic, detective gangster sort of style?
I love that. That's my favorite era of history, the sort of the 20s, the 30s kind of America kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do love that kind of stuff. And I love it when Red Dwarf does that thing with the cold opens. Just, totally throws you off from the second that the titles have finished. And obviously in this case, it's a cold open that actually links into the story that's going to follow, as opposed to something like Tongue Tied, which has no relevance, but it's a great cold open.
It's amazing.
It's so good, so good.
I love this 1920s sort of aesthetic too. The kind of like just that whole era of the trilbies and the speakeasies and all that sort of stuff. I've always loved that, and I remember being like maybe about 20 years ago thinking, won't it be cool when we get to the 2020s and we can say we're in the 20s again and we can all go around wearing trilbies and it'll be like a real retro thing. Little did I know what the 2020s would actually turn out like at the time. But
little did you know. But as you say, this doesn't last forever. We quickly learn, Lister's like this detective called Philip, I think, funnily enough, Phil. And, he's chatting with this girl who he thinks he sold him out, but he still kind of likes her, and it's all going well. And then we cut back to Starbug because it's just a bit of VR. It's just a bit of VR. And I guess, like, it's a wonderful...
AR.
AR.
But I don't know what... Is that meant to be augmented reality? Is that what it's meant to be? They never say, but it's AR, apparently.
Possibly, but I just love like the headset. It's that lovely, in the 90s when you look back and how they approached VR back then. It was all these like bulky,
chunky.
Yeah, with like flashing lights. I'm like, oh my God, this is certainly from 1993. And,
it's an improvement in terms of the headsets. It's an improvement on what they had in the Better Than Life episode, which was basically a bicycle helmet with some wires stuck in it.
Absolutely. And just to pivot back for a second, Miles, you mentioned Tongue Tied, which of course, yes, great opener. I believe that actually came out around the time, as a single, I should say, that Series 6 was airing. 1993, it says here, and would you believe it actually reached number 17 on the UK charts in 1993? So
wow,
the Red Dwarf appeal was strong back then. Clearly,
it actually reached the charts. That amazing. I mean, it's a great song. Don't get me wrong, but that's the power of Red Dwarf, isn't it?
It is.
It's a great song, but have you ever seen the weird kind of little mini short that goes with it?
The music video.
It's a music video, but it starts off as like a little short film, and there's a really, really long kind of dialogue bit before it goes into the song that's setting up Danny John Jules' character in it as this cleaner in this film studio. It's the bizarrest thing, and it goes on for way too long. But if you haven't checked it out, go check that out because it's just worth watching for the comedy value.
Well, that's what I'm going to do tonight. As soon as we finish recording, guys, I'm going to be watching.
Going to jump straight in. And we learn from, as the scene progresses, that, Kryten says Lister's been in this for a month. So clearly the search for Red Dwarf is going so well that Lister doesn't want to be active in the real world. And the
allure of the AR is just too much.
It's just too strong.
Well, we all know what he's doing in the AR.
Yes,
dirty
we do. Dirty Lister. And the only way Kryten can get through to him is by jumping in the game himself. He chooses a character and jumps in. Kryten with a mustache I found quite funny.
I love seeing Kryten in real people's clothes and with disguises on and things like that. That's just like it's very easy comedy. It's very easy laughs for me, but I do love seeing Kryten in his trilby and in his little pencil mustache. It's great, isn't it?
And then later on you get it again in him in a completely different set of clothes.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's just so odd to see this, like his, what does Rimmer keep calling him, like a crash test dummy kind of head or badly shaped pencil eraser head in a normal set of clothes. I just love it.
Yeah, I love it. It reminded me of I think it's in Better Than Life. Where he's playing like that detective there. What was it, Jack? What was he called? Was it Jack Bullet or something like that? Where he's
in Back to Reality.
That's it. Sorry,
yes.
Back to Reality.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, just
Jake
the whole
Bullet.
trilby trench coat look. It just reminded me of that. I wondered if they do a callback because one thing we say on this show a lot is that sometimes Red Dwarf will ignore by choice huge parts of established continuity and gets away with it, and then it will make the most random callbacks to like. So do you know what I mean? I thought,
exactly.
Are we gonna get a Jack Bullet reference? But they didn't. They didn't decide to go for it, unfortunately. But I did like though one of my potential funniest moments. I'll let everyone know at the end if it was was when, he's trying to get Lister out of the car back to reality. And he's like, give me 10 minutes.
Sir, 5 minutes, I'll keep my hat on.
It's great comedy, that. I do love that. And the way that Kryten's so excited about having found these particles or whatever it is. And Lister's like, I couldn't be more happy for you. Just let me get on with this, and then we'll have a chat.
Making full use, Lister making full use of the groinal attachment of the VR system there. Interesting trivia from the IMDb. Apparently, when Craig Charles was filming that, when he forgot to take the groinal attachment off when he went to move, to go to when the scene had ended, when they'd stopped rolling, and injured himself in a not convenient place.
Oh wow! I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. So that would have worn out whether his lifetime guarantee or whatever whatever Rimmer says later on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, it does, and he does eventually bring him back to Starbug, and we sort of check in with the other crew, what's going on. And I just realised, Phil, I forgot to read the synopsis for the episode. But the
How
synopsis
will everyone know what's going on?
I know, but the synopsis I found does start at this point, so I feel now is a good time to say it. So, Starbug narrowly wins a battle with rogue simulants, but the simulants have infected Starbug with a virus, and the ship is locked in a collision course with a volcano planet. Kryten tries to fight the virus, but this takes him into a Wild West movie in his digital mind. So there you go, and we'll get to all this as we go. But when we come back to reality, we get a bit of banter with the crew, before the rogue simulants come in. It's nice to see Kat having some banter with Rimmer, because I don't know if you know, Miles, one thing we've sort of critiqued a lot is that Kat sometimes feels like a bit of a spare part. He seems to only fit the bill of, he'll say the odd funny thing, but he doesn't really get the same development or attention that the other three do. So I found it quite nice that, for a little bit anyway, he's got this time with Rimmer, and then all four of them as well. So what did you two think? So what did you two think of this whole, I guess, like banter segment before the rogue simulants came in?
I love the thing about Series 6, which I love, is because it's very Starbug focused. In fact, that's the only location, that's the main location really, isn't it? I love the fact that we open every episode with the cockpit scenes. It's like the traditional sitcom in that you always get, the living room set or the cafe set or whatever. I love that the cockpit scenes always open pretty much, give or take, every episode of Series 6. So the little banter bits they have is great, and in this episode in particular there's some fantastic one-liners just throughout that entire exchange running up to the simulant ship bit.
Yeah, those cockpit scenes have sort of replaced the bunk scenes that they used to have in the earlier seasons, because they do have a sort of bedroom area in the ship that we do see on occasion that multi-purposes as many other things as well, but they don't really use it in the same way that they used to use the bunks in the earlier seasons. That has been replaced by the cockpit, which I think works a lot better. Because you can involve the story in it as well, the narrative plot, and also it gives something. We said this, I think, last week, that Kat does have more to do in this whole series than he ever has done before, because he's now feels like an integral part of the plot rather than somebody who's just hanging around annoying them. He's there as one of the people steering the ship and using his unique skills of being able to smell stuff to spot things. Like when they go dark here, they're relying on his sense of smell to see if there's anything else out there. So I like that. And Kat, actually, this is a really good episode for Kat, I think, because he has a lot of stuff. He comes up with some plans later on, which we'll get to, which, it doesn't usually happen. And he's got some great lines as well. He's got some great dancing. It's a good episode for Kat.
It is a good one for Kat, actually. Yeah, and you're right, because usually Kat tends to be, to sort of bring a Doctor Who sort of equivalent in here, he tends to be the Nissa of the four strong team. He's always the one who kind of gets either put aside or whatever. So it's nice. You're right. It's nice to see him get a bit more to do and get a lot of the laughs this episode. Like Kat really does get the good end of the stick here.
And it's great as well because Danny John Jules definitely deserves it as well because he's such a good actor, and I just feel sometimes, not that he's been wasted, but there's just moments where you think, oh, you could have made more of a thing for Kat there, or you could have given him the same. Like we've said before in episodes where, particularly where I think this series opener, I know I've said it already, but in Sirens, when, Lister's awoken from cryo sleep or whatever, we get his explanation as to what's gone on, we get Rimmer's, we get Kryten's, and then Kat just appears. Like, it's like, oh, okay. So it's that sort of thing. Yeah, I'm glad he's now getting that focus. But before we get onto the rogue simulants and, the plot moving to the central part of the episode, I wanted to get both his opinion on one of the jokes. So they talk about, the fact that Lister's pretty much, been obsessed with this AR unit ever since they've discovered it or whatever. And one of the things he apparently uses it for, he claims, is for the tennis. Now, Rimmer says, "Oh, you're in it for that jailbait ball girl." And he says, "She's not jailbait, she's 17. Now, obviously, this was written a very long time ago, nearly 30 years ago. Do you think that sort of joke would fly today in that context? Just out of curiosity, I'm not saying it was like a good or bad joke. I'm just saying, do you think it'd fly if they wrote this today?
I was literally going to bring up this line because it is, like you say now, Adam, it is a little bit uncomfortable when you hear lines like that. Obviously, like you say, and then in '94, it would have gone and it would have been a funny line. Sure. It's a different sensibility at the time, but yeah, now it does seem very dated, a bit dodgy.
Yeah, because how old is he meant to be anyway, Lister? Is he
mid 20s, mid 20s maybe?
Mid to late 20s by this point, maybe?
Yeah.
There was definitely a line in the Holoship episode where he gets scanned and he said that he's a chronological age, like 30, actual physical age 56 or something like that. So I think the age was mentioned around 30 at the most.
Right.
But,
okay.
Yeah. It does sort of it comes off as just a bit cringy and a bit, and as well something that I personally don't find as funny at the point I'm at now. Like, I just don't find the sex-related jokes in Red Dwarf anywhere near as funny as I might have done as a teenager. Those things just don't get a laugh out of me anymore, really.
I think that's fair. That's fair. I think I know a lot of people who, undergo a same thing, like when you watch things like I know when I used to watch Family Guy as a teenager, a lot of those, like that style and the sex, like you say, when you're a teen and it's all like new and it's like, oh, this is like edgy stuff. But then like I can't watch Family Guy now because I'm just like, I don't like, fair play to the work of everyone
I'm the
behind
same with
it.
South Park.
Oh, are you?
I used to, as a teenager, because I was a teenager when South Park first. Well, I was probably slightly younger than a teenager when South Park first started, and I remember absolutely loving it. I bought the video game. I had the VHS box sets, and like, I don't think I could watch it now. I haven't tried in years, but I just don't think I don't think I'd find it funny.
Sure.
There's so many shows like that, isn't there? Like you say, Family Guy, South Park, The In-Betweeners to an extent as well.
Oh, yeah.
Those programs that you do, your sensibilities change over the years and they become more or less funny depending on what age you are, really. So that joke about the jailbait ball girl did come across as one of those instances of okay, but
yeah. I mean, to be honest, we've only in the 6 series we've gone through so far, I think we've only had, me and Phil have had, only a couple of times where we've sort of said, oh, that joke maybe wouldn't, haven't we? We haven't. It's not been every episode.
It has been. It hasn't. Yeah. I don't even know if there's been even one every series. There's, it's
just like the odd
maybe
thing every now
4 times in the 6 series we've gone.
Yeah,
that's not cool. Yeah. Feel a bit uncomfortable about that joke.
But to shake us out of that joke, again, the main synopsis, the rogue simulants are here. They've intercepted them. And, of course, Rimmer offers to surrender straight away, as he did last episode or earlier in the series, I believe. And their plan, because we learn that the rogue simulants don't like humans. They want to destroy humans. But Lister has a backup plan, and I've got to say...
Yes, which is inspired by the cat, because he initially comes up with the plan, basically.
Yes.
Because this is part of why Cat is actually well used in this episode. And he has a great line. I like his line about... he's talking about cat and mouse games, and the mouse never wins.
Not unless you believe those lying cartoons.
Obviously referencing Tom and Jerry.
Yes.
I liked that as well. But he comes up with the sort of a plan, which then sparks Lister to... kind of develop it a bit further.
Yes, and the plan itself is so simple but so fun. I mean,
so effective.
I found it hilarious. For those who don't know, they basically do that trick of they turn the camera upside down, stick a googly eye on their chin, and it hilarity.
The Vindiluvian Empire are born.
And it was so and just. Do you know, again, I was surprised because as soon as it came on, obviously I chuckled, but I was like, oh, like I'm not I'm surely not going to find this whole scene funny. It's like really juvenile in a way, but I was giggling the whole way. I don't know what it was.
I thought that exact same thing. I was like, okay, this is funny, maybe one laugh. And then it pans over to Cat and his teeth. There's something about it. It is just, and it works for the audience as well, because you can't hear his line because the audience are just loving it. And they're laughing so much that all you see is Cat's tongue flopping around with his big teeth.
It's the tongue as well, isn't it?
Yes,
it's the movement. It's the way they do, the way they're flicking their chin around, the way the tongue flicks out, and it's the movement that absolutely makes it. Beyond what you're just seeing in terms of the actual shape of the thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. And there's a recurring thing we have on this show where I often say, I found that joke was too long. I wanted more. I was like, give me more scenes of the Vindiluvian Empire. But
I did find that a lot this episode. There were a lot of bits I was like, I wish I was seeing more of this. Like, it is one of the episodes where I would happily watch an extended cut or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, it's a good one. But sadly, the Vindiluvian Empire's time is cut sadly short as the rogue simulant. They don't have another name, do they? It's just rogue simulants.
Rogue simulants. No, I was going to say that it's an interesting addition to the lore of the show, if you can say Red Dwarf has a lore, that the simulants, I think they do come back. I think there are other episodes where there's simulants. Oh, I might be misremembering something else. It's been a while. But I quite like the concept of them because they, it's not very often that they come across a whole crew of people. It's only really been the Hollow Ship up until this point. Mostly they just come across like a random creature or a random one lone person. So it's interesting that there is this whole sort of race out there. And that they are aren't aliens.
Yeah, they're sort of like Red Dwarf's Cybermen or Borg, that kind of the cybernetic type of character. I do love that Red Dwarf got their own kind of recurring monster almost that we see in almost every kind of series, sort of from series 3 or 4 onwards. Yeah.
No, that is cool, and he arrives on Starbug, and he's not impressed with what he sees, not in the slightest. And he leads that there's only one conclusion, and he proceeds to zap them, and they all fall to the ground. And I thought at this point, I was like, right, surely they're gonna capture them, but they don't. They wake up on Starbug, realizing it's 3 weeks later, and things are a bit different. They've had a bit of an upgrade. But before I go on any further, that whole scene then with the rogue simulant on the ship, any standout moments for you two there? Or
personally, I thought there was so many great one-liners in that scene, especially having the recurring Space Corps directive gag.
Yes,
it was slightly twisted. I think that it was something like a different kind of directive.
It was like the all nations agreement. I think it was. Yeah.
And Kryten's got that brilliant line of, "Here we are in mortal danger, and you're worried about the Chinese delegates bringing 2 cars." And it's just like it is exactly. I love that dynamic between Rimmer and Kryten. They're just the way that Rimmer thinks he knows exactly what he's doing, and Kryten is always there to sort of go, "Yeah, but not quite."
Yeah, but
it's great. I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My favourite moment from this whole bit was probably when Kryten puts his eyes back in, because they've been used on the chins. It's Kryten's eyes, and he puts them back in. The simulant is already there, and it's just the look on Kryten's face and the moment of surprise when he sort of staggers back, and he doesn't say anything. It's just purely the physical acting from Robert Llewellyn there is probably got my biggest laugh at the moment. I've probably given away that might be my favourite moment there, but that was really good. That got a laugh out of me.
Oh, ace. Well, as I say, the ship has been upgraded by the simulants. I'm assuming so they can fight them. Was that the reason they said they did it? So they were a challenge?
because he mentions when he beams over that they're no sport. He wants this is their hunting ground. They want a challenge, and they're no challenge. They're a useless bunch of idiots. So they upgrade the ship in the hope that they will run away but be a bit of a hunt, I think.
Yeah. And is this where Cat comes up with his second idea of the episode? Is it about fighting back?
Maybe this is the first. Maybe I skipped ahead. Maybe
is this where he decides this is the idea to face them?
This is where he says the cat and mouse game. I got that in the wrong place. This is where he says the cat and mouse thing.
And that's when they all decide to go for it, and he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he has that great line which just killed me off when he says, what happens if we all get killed? I'll never hear the end of it. And it's like, that is, it's Doug and Naylor down to a T. I just love that. Great wordplay, fantastic.
Great witty writing, absolutely. And the enemy ship, I found it hard to tell with the shot. Did it explode? Did they self-destruct so that there was like an explosion shot?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, hang on, I couldn't tell if they like fired something at Starbug or if they'd self-destructed their ship to then send, because then Starbug is locked on this collision course with a volcanic planet. So I don't know if you two have greater clarity on it, because again, the shot's so quick.
Well, what I thought happened, do correct us in the comments if I'm wrong, that I thought that with the upgraded weaponry that they'd been given or whatever, Starbug had actually surprised them,
like a lucky shot,
had a very lucky shot and destroyed them. But as it was being destroyed, they then transmitted the virus over,
right?
And that's what locked the ship on the course.
I think what makes it so confusing is the fact that it happens so quickly. What I find funny is that they've spent 3 weeks like making Starbug the perfect battle for them, upgrading the weaponry, all the different systems, and the battle happens in about 10 seconds.
Oh, God,
and it's just is I mean, that's the one little thing I was sort of like, it goes in a flash, and I wish we did see a little bit of that, a little bit more of the cat and mouse thing.
I wonder if it's a constraint. We've mentioned this before, but there are some moments throughout Red Dwarf where you think, if this wasn't a 25-minute program, like if it had been a bit, or if they'd have done a 2-parter. But so do you think that could have been one of them? Maybe if this was like either a 2-parter or had like 10 extra minutes or something, they could have elaborated on it a bit more.
Definitely. I think that this would have been like I say, if it was an extended cut, that scene would have played out a bit more.
It would have been great to see some more stuff done with that model as well of the simulant ship, because that was a really nice model. Again, the model work on this show is always really good.
And actually, it turns out as well that I was watching the documentary about the making of the episode, and Mike Tucker, the designer, said that the simulant spaceship is designed in the shape of a cow skull, the kind you see in the foreground of like a western, in the big
snap. Yeah.
And I thought that the attention to detail that these guys put into the show, and it's not even like brought up, it's not even referred to or anything, but the fact that they put that thought into it, it shows just how much goes into this program.
Yeah, that's a great little reference, absolutely. But as Phil said, the simulants have sent a virus over to Starbug, which has locked them on course, and they think they're buggered. There's no way out. But Kryten says he can take on the virus, which will allow him to create a Dove program to then send it back and break the control. But to do this, he has to sort of put himself into a bit of a deep sleep. He's got to cease all his non-central functions, and it will allow the others to watch his dreams. And apparently Kryten dreams of a Wild Western scenario. And I actually wrote in my notes, I put, we're getting a Red Dwarf Western, and I'm absolutely here for it. I love it when the show, sort of like I think you said near the beginning, Miles, like takes these routes out of space, whether they're on Earth or in different genres. Like I love that sort of stuff. So as soon as we found we're in a Western, I was like, yes, I'm along for the ride.
Another nugget from the trivia section is that of IMDb is that it points out that in a previous episode, Kryten had mentioned that the only films that Starbug had, a recent episode for Lister to watch, were Doug McClure films, and apparently Doug McClure made a lot of Westerns. So I don't know if that was deliberate or it was just pure coincidence. But if they've all been watching a lot of Westerns because Doug McClure films are the only films they've got, that would explain why Kryten probably subconsciously puts himself into a Western.
That's so funny. That was going to be my next question. I was going to be like, why of all the sort of things that Kryten dreams of would he dream of a Western? But perhaps they've been watching it the night before, and that's exactly the reason why it's kind of conjured up. So there we go, Phil. You've explained it. I'm fine now. Got no nitpicks.
That's sorted. And that's such a niche reference that I could believe they'd do it, because they've done this before. So I would not be surprised if this was more than a coincidence. But yeah, and Kryten is portrayed as a bit of a drunken sheriff, a bit of a stumbler about. He stumbles into the saloon, and I don't know if you both heard, we get a old-timey rendition of the Red Dwarf theme on the saloon.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite
piano.
nice.
Yeah,
nice little touch. And he's a bit of he's the joke of the town. People sort of laugh at him, take the mick of him. But then, what is it? The Apocalypse Boys arrive, as they're called. Their names being Death, War, Famine, and Pestilence. So, what did you think of these opening few scenes then, sort of establishing who Kryten is in this Western, if you like?
I think it's great just seeing, like you said, it's a very different kind of scene, you know, we're so used to space stuff that to see it in a Western is so bizarre, and great costume design and set design to go with that, even though it was filmed in Kent or whatever like that. That's probably why it's quite overcast for a sort of a Kansas Kansas setting. It's probably a little, you know, the weather might not be perfect, but
I think it's one of those standing sets, isn't it, that's just always there as a Western town.
Exactly. So, but regardless, it's very nice to see something different from Red Dwarf, and the way that it's played out, the dialogue, hearing Kryten's accent it just sort of blends in for the first time. You know, you've got all these other American accents. So it's very nicely done, and a great alternative to just having this computer battle being done via like data or pixels and things like that. To see it done in this form is just something really refreshing, really.
And all of the horsemen of the apocalypse, they're all unique, which I quite like. They're not just carbon copies of each other, you know, stereotypical. They've all got their own unique little, like the guy with the flies flying around him. He's pestilence, you know, all these little things that relate to what they are. That's quite nice. And they're very imposing, and they look like they'll be a threat. I liked it.
It was really evoking, I guess, that as I think it was going for, that classic Western feel of, like, you know, the outriders coming into town, usually dressed in black, trying to cause up some trouble. But of course, the other lads are all watching this back on Starbug, and they're like, "Well, we've got to go and help him." And they decide to use
another plan inspired by Cat. And as he says, twice in one lifetime.
When you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, and you get that great joke about, you know, if there's only some way we could get in there, if we had a piece of equipment that's just lying around, and if not, why not? Like, very on the nose, but done in that great way where you sort of just chuckle along with it, I think.
Yeah. Did you also notice this? I think this might be the only time that it actually happens. They reference switching Rimmer between his hard light and soft light modes, which I don't think. I don't know if they ever do that again, or if he's just permanently in hard light mode from this episode onwards. But they even put a reason in for it, that it's more of a power drain on Starbug to have him in his hard light mode, which makes sense. I thought that was just a nice little touch. And they do change his uniform color again when he switches modes.
I love that,
which is nice.
I love that, It's my favourite Rimmer costume as well, the sort of the red and the blue alternatives in this series.
That's interesting. So when you say it's his favourite
even though Chris
costume,
Barry said it was his least favourite.
do you just mean the colours, or do you like the whole costume? Because we've been like, we don't like the quilted look particularly.
I think I am in the minority, because I've heard a lot of flack against this costume. I know a lot of people love the sort of the green velvet, or not velvet, but the sort of shiny look that he had in series 3 and 4. But I don't know, there's something about this look that I just think it seems a bit more, and I like the fact that it changes between the red and the blue depending on the soft or the hard light.
That is good. I do like that.
So that might be why. I don't know what it is. This is my favourite look for Rimmer. It's just something a bit different.
I can imagine Chris Barry might not have liked it, because especially under those studio lights, having a quilted costume must have been very hot.
Bring back the beige second technician uniform. That's what I say. So they all decide to use the AR to jump in. They all choose their characters, and they all have special skills, just like any good video game should. And they jump in, and they all have different. What do we think of the three lads' attire in the Western world?
I mean, Danny John Jules as Riviera Kid, that is just the perfect costume design. It's flamboyant. It's it perfectly fits Cat. I think his is my favourite costume of the three. Definitely the one that stands out the most.
I think they're all great costume designs, but the other two are just kind of what you expect anyway. They're in a Western kind of world. Great, it fits in really well. But Cat's is just unique, on point, and as he would be, he's the flamboyant one. All of his costumes are flamboyant and have extra sparkle to them, and this is no exception.
Yeah, absolutely. And they make their presence known in the saloon. You know, they try and order drinks. Rimmer, of course, wants his dry white wine, which is not gonna quite fly back in the Old West. And you know, they get into some trouble. He pukes in a guy's hat, which almost starts a bar fight, but that gets diffused pretty quickly. But the bit I wanted to mention was, you know, Kryten comes in eventually, and they're trying to talk to him, and then that regular customers, you know, swinging the bottle in front of him, teasing him, and then Rimmer displays his special skill, which is knife throwing. And this could have been my eyes, because I don't have the best eyes, but the shots where we see the knives, you
Lister.
know, like...
You mean Lister, don't you?
Sorry, Lister, not Rimmer.
Oh, yes, it's Lister, yeah.
Sorry, mixed up. But when you see Lister throw the knives, the shots of the knives hitting the guy and putting him to the wall, I think they were possibly shot in reverse and then played. Yeah. I got that. My eyes quit. I was like, "Oh, that looks
The
off."
speed of it.
Yeah.
It
The
looks
speed of it
because,
and the way that he jolts.
because it was reversed. I mean, it looked very similar to Backwards, the episode Backwards,
Yes.
that scene.
Yeah.
But it could have been an episode from that, because the jerky movement of things going in the wrong way kind of had that feeling to it.
And quickly after, we find out Cat's special skill, which is what was it specifically called? Was it
the gun skills or
Like-
something along
Yeah,
those lines?
he's a good
shooting or
sharpshooter.
something like that.
Sharpshooter, that's it. Yeah.
So much so that he shoots bullets out of the air, which I don't know if that's feasibly possible, but
in a video game, or in a dreamscape
and in
sequence,
Red Dwarf.
anything's possible. And in Red Dwarf, exactly, anything's
There is a real world example of bullets being shot out of the air, and because there is in some museum somewhere, there is hanging a bullet with another bullet that has gone through the side of it, and that has obviously stopped it in midair. That I think it's from either World War One or World War Two, and it's now in a museum somewhere. So it has happened at least once in actual history.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
It's obviously possible.
Yeah. By
I like
pure
the-
fluke.
And I do love as well how obviously before that little gun shooting thing, we have the sort of recurring thing in the episode as the Riviera Kid when Cat gets his little guitar playing and little dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
The Riviera Kid.
I love
dancing,
that dance.
which I thought that's another one of those jokes which I thought, like, once done I was like, okay, very funny, but weirdly the more it comes up the funnier it is, because it's like we are actually doing this, we are having this little dance, this sort of Spanish tune. It's perfect.
I think. Do you think it's because every time he does it, the situations they're in are like more extreme? So it's like, why on earth would you dance? And he's just like, no, I've got to do the dance. It's great. And as you say, Danny John Jules just rocks it absolutely. And
it oozes coolness and campness and everything under the sun. He's great. Yeah,
absolutely. And we see Rimmer's special skill soon enough. He's good at fist fighting. He punches out everyone in the bar and says, what does he say when he leaves? Oh, he's like, marvellous, or something like that. Marvellous. Just very on-point Rimmer, of course. He'd react like that. And,
he puts on a great little American accent as well. Which apparently, again, I'm referencing the IMDb Twitter, but apparently he used the same voice he used for Ronald Reagan in Spitting Image. So
that rings a bell, actually. Yeah, he does. He has that sort of twang about him. I mean, obviously he's a great impressionist, isn't he? So I'm not surprised. Yeah.
Ronnie. I didn't
obviously
know
a
he
lot
voiced
better than
Ronnie
his
Reagan.
accent at the bar.
Yeah,
in Spitting Image.
Shit.
Yeah, he's a great impressionist. So it's always great when Chris Barry gets to do that in the show of like. I mean, I love his like Ace Rimmer voice and all the different voices he puts on. It's great and so refreshing to have him play about like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, you know, it's nice that he does get to do the American accent, even if he is a bit of a hopeless cowboy going to the bar and asking for the, you know, his dry white wine and a Perrier, please.
Yes.
It's great to see that he's getting a chance to play around like that.
Yeah. No, I think we've said before, anytime Chris Barry gets to like work outside the parameters of Rimmer, it's an absolute treat for sure. So Kryten's leaving. They don't want him to leave. They want to help defeat this. So we get some lovely physical comedy once again with Cat's dance and then his bullet work. And again, such a simple bit of physical comedy. You know, the bullet hits a sign which conks him out. But I laughed a lot, and I was like, "Why am I laughing?" I think maybe it's the way it's framed and like,
and the way that they hold on that wide shot just long enough so that when the sign hits him, it's perfectly timed. And you're right, Adam, a great moment of physical comedy. It works really well, and that is one of my funniest moments of the episode. The way that it's just bang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, great little moment. They sober him up with dry pots of coffee, which sounds like my
Dried
idea
coffee
of hell.
grounds.
Yeah, that sounds horrific. And they try and convince him of what's going on, and slowly but surely, he's sort of remembering smatterings of what's going on. What did you think of this scene, like the sobering up scene, the calm before the storm, as it were?
I liked that he gradually remembered stuff. It wasn't like instant. He sort of gradually, he starts coming around. He starts going, I've got a name coming to me, Smeeg, and Smeg head thing that you can't quite say. That worked quite well. And then by the time he's outside, he's remembered.
Yeah. This I do love this sort of slow callback, and the callback to the Smee here, which is one of my favourite scenes of Red Dwarf when he's getting taught the name Smeghead. So I always love to get a little callback to that scene.
Lovely little callback indeed. But there's not much more time for jokes there, as the Apocalypse Boys are back. They're back for revenge. It's time, and I really thought we were going to get the classic Western duel. Everyone in a dust bowl, ready to draw their pistols. But the boys have an unfair advantage because they take away their special skills and their ability to exit the game. But I love this moment where, Rimmer, of course, in normal circumstance, the last person who would walk forward for a fight is like, no, I'll doesn't even say anything. He's like, yeah, I'll go. And like you say, Miles, he does that great, American voice, I can't remember what he said, but it's like, who wants to take me on and all.
Who wants to take me on mano a mano?
Yeah, and it's that wonderful reveal moment where the enemy just takes that board, and then River goes to do the same and just can't. But
and it's even funnier because
we,
the audience, have already realised they've lost their powers because Cat has tried guns and dropped them.
Yes,
but of course Rimmer hasn't seen that, so we know what's coming, and that just adds to the tension and the funniness when he goes to try and pull the thing off, and the bit of wood off the bench or whatever he's getting, and just can't do it. And he's like,
can't do it.
And he says, I may have come across as more brave than I am.
Yes, absolutely. So then what did you both think of, obviously, because then calamity ensues, they can't escape, they're trying to avoid everything, they're trying to get the headsets off. What did you both think of that whole little escapade at the end there?
It's a great bit of physical comedy, a bit like, throughout this episode there's some great physical comedy and great physical gags, and I think that they really play up those gags at the end, particularly like the sort of trying to get the headsets off, where we see it both in the sort of Western scenario and also on the ship. And the whole thing of, when Cat's giving Lister a hand and he's almost pulling his nose off.
Yes.
It's just seeing those two grapple with each other. It's
and
great.
When Cat has taken off one boot and one glove, and therefore in the game he's paralysed down one half.
Paralysed down the
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So clever, because obviously we've seen, like, when we started off, we saw it from one perspective, in this sort of the gangster scenario, we're kind of seeing it and the AR setting on the ship after the fact, whereas in this we know what's going on, and it's just very well done, and so
no word on if they're wearing the groinal attachments for this part of the episode.
No.
This part.
No,
probably.
I hope they wouldn't need to use that to save the day in this
instance. You'd hope so, but I wouldn't put it past Lister to think, well, there might be a nice barmaid in there while I'm in there. Once we've saved the day, I can stick around.
That's something to ask the writers, I think, if we ever got the chance. But they do eventually get themselves out of there, so it's just Kryten left, and he gets hailed on with a rain of bullets, but he is able to release the Dove program, of course, via an actual Dove. Would you expect anything else?
I love that shot as well when he goes for his guns and they become, I don't know how they did it. It's so seamless.
Yeah.
I love that shot.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the effects team on this program, they always come up with such innovative ways of doing it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, we've said it before, haven't we, Phil? Like, for the early 90s on a BBC budget, some of the stuff they pull off is insane, really insane. But the program's been released and they're back in Starbug. Kryten's back up, but they're literally seconds away from crashing into the volcanic planets. They've got to make a dash. but we see Starbug hit the lava,
They don't
which I
make
must admit
it,
I
and
wasn't
they're all dead, and that's
expecting.
where the show ends, and we know. How
Yeah,
it
the
works.
show just ends there.
You no point. Don't bother watching the rest of the series, Adam. That's all fake. It's all the fabrication.
It's all fake. But no, of course, they do break out of it with a very good model shot, I will say. They do break out of it. And then the credits roll. And we say a
Literally
lot,
flying
Miles,
off
that
into the sunset in Western
literally,
style.
yeah. We do say sometimes on this show that the endings of episodes are very like quick and out of nowhere, whether that's because of the constraints of the 25-minute formula, or if they feel they don't need to elaborate on what's gone on. So where do you two sit on this ending? Did you think it was too quick, or were you happy with the fact like we've solved the main issue and that's it? Like, what are your thoughts?
I'm in two minds about it, because I do agree. When I first watched it, I just sort of feel like, oh wow, that is literally it.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. But yeah, then again, like you say, they have resolved the sort of the main aspects of it in the Western game. Everything's solved, everything's sorted, and they're literally riding off into the sunset. So I don't know how else they would have done it, but yeah, it did still feel a bit kind of, wow, that's it. That's the end.
We're done.
And you're right, that happens a lot with Red Dwarf. There's a lot of episodes when I've sort of gone, oh, that's a shame. But yeah.
It did end
What about
abruptly,
you, Phil?
but there are sometimes when I think that works, and I think this is one of them. I think, especially with the riding off into the sunset, you get the kind of Western music goes up again, and I think it kind of works this time. It was abrupt, but it didn't bother me this time.
Yeah.
Ended on a high note, didn't it? With the sort of the yeehaw as they go off.
Yeah, I was very much like you, I think, Miles, in the two minds, because I think at first when the credits started, I was like, "Oh, really? Like we're just doing that?" But then I lean more into what you said, Phil. Like, with the Western version of the theme and the sunset, I was like, you know what? Like it's fine. But very very like you say, I think it's very split, isn't it, for a lot of people? People either really like the sort of right, we're done, that's it endings, and then some people want maybe a bit more, or they want more, and we have seen it. We've seen episodes where they elaborate for better or worse. Like I know one I always bring up that I wasn't fond of was Justice, wasn't it, Phil?
Yeah.
From series, was that 4? Series 4?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, 3 or 4.
Because Lister has that monologue about justice at the end that just feels very out of nowhere, and then he falls down a hole, and that's it. It's like, right, okay.
That is definitely one of those ones, like you say, that just epitomizes like. It's almost just like they've gone, oh wait, we're done now, let's just roll the credits, we're finished.
Stop him talking, get it over with.
Yeah,
but no, this one's all right. We'll let it slide. But that in a nutshell, folks, is Series 6, Episode 3, Gunmen of the Apocalypse, and those were our thoughts on it. So, Miles, what we do is we have our regular segments. So, your favourite character, did you have a particular favourite in this episode? Could be one of the leads, could be one of the side characters, anyone you like.
I do, and you know what? It might be a bit of a surprise given how much we've talked about other characters to some extent. But my favourite character of the episode is Rimmer, or
nice.
Dangerous Dan McGrew, or whatever you want to call him in this scenario. I mean, he's my favourite character in the show in general. We talked about his costume for like 10 minutes or whatever. So I do love Rimmer, but in this episode, Chris Barry just seems to. He gets a lot of the laughs from me, and any of the sort of comedy lines he gets, he always nails, and it's just great comic timing from him. And he just has some of the best one-liners as well. The lemmings like cliffs. Just the little quips like that, and right up to the end. There seems to be a bit of a cock up in the bravado department. It's definitely my favourite of the episode. It has to be.
Nice.
Good old Rimsey.
Solid choice. What about you, Phil?
I'm going to give it to the cat. And I don't know if I've ever given it to the cat before.
I was going to say, is that a first?
It might be a first. But I do think this is probably the best the cat has been used up to this point. I think we might, if my memory's not too dodgy on it, I think we might be getting some more good stuff from the cat coming up, possibly even next episode. But But I generally think this is the best we've had from the cat so far, and there's so many good moments in it from him, from the flair and the dancing of his costume, the fact that he came up with 2 plans in the space that they
I
actually
know.
followed through on.
There's more plans than he's come up in like the past 5
Exactly,
series.
yeah.
It's amazing.
Exactly.
And he's really feeling like a part of the crew now. Generally, I mean that's just generally for this whole series, but I think it's it really shows itself most in this episode. So I am picking Cat.
Solid choice. Well, I'm going the same route as Phil. I'm also going to pick Cat, which might be a first for me too. Like we've said, he's just used a lot more, and he's given more to do than just the odd one-liner or like slagging off Rimmer or whatever it is. He's used to great effect, and Danny John Jules sells it completely. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to the Cat. So
I'm being swayed by you guys. I kind of think I should have gone for the Cat now, but yeah.
Rimmer was a close second for me. I will say that because
Yeah.
he does brilliantly as Dangerous Dan McGrew, as like you say, whatever he's called. Well, those are our favourite characters. The other one we do is funniest moment. So Miles, this can be like a whole scene, it could be one line, it could be an interaction. Whatever you found was the funniest moment for you in the whole episode.
Well, what got the biggest laugh from me in this episode, and always never fails to make me laugh, is the moment when they're trying to get out of the game. There's just a lot of like we were saying, a lot of physical comedy.
Yeah.
Particularly when Rimmer tries to get out of the game, and you have to clap to get out of the game. You know, there's 2 buttons on the gloves, and you clap and you get out. Rimmer tries to do this and realizes it's not working, and turns it into a bit of a dance, a bit of a sort of a Spanish dance in front of war. And I just love how Chris Barry plays that off.
Yeah.
Again, another Rimmer moment, but yeah, that whole bit of them all trying to get out of the game, it really does. It always gives me the giggles. So that's my favourite moment of this one.
Great choice. Phil, yourself?
I've already mentioned it, and I gave the game away early, but it's the moment where Kryten pops his eyes back in and sees the simulant there, and it's just the facial expression he pulls and the sort of stagger back, and it like everyone else has already seen them, and he's like 10-15 seconds behind everyone else. And it's just Robert Llewellyn does a great job there with the physical comedy there. So yeah, that got the biggest laugh out of me for the episode.
Robert Llewellyn always is so good with his facial expressions, isn't he?
So, especially when he's doing
nails it every
surprise.
time.
He does surprisingly. Like given how much like his face is encased in plastic,
It's insane, isn't it?
Convey so much. Still, it's great.
He's got a very malleable face. It's always great to see him in and out of the makeup, because he's just got one of those a bit like sort of Jim Carrey-esque. That kind of really expression, the expressions he pulls is just fantastic. Yeah.
Just so good.
Yeah.
We love him.
What about you, Adam?
For me, it's going to have to be the Vindaloovians. As I said, I couldn't. I was amazed. I laughed the whole way through because I was like, I thought I'd gotten past the whole, oh, look, I'm sitting upside down and I've scrolled something on my chin. But no, clearly that comedy is eternal. So yeah, I've got to. It was what got me the biggest laugh. So I've got to give it to the Vindaloovians.
And we've
Just
finally found a
bit of
joke
physical
that
comedy.
not only do you not
That I
think
don't
goes
think
on
is
too
too
long, but you
long.
actually wanted it to go on longer.
I did. That's a first.
Amazing.
Yeah, first. Lots
We
of
got
firsts.
Series 6, but we got there.
We got there, yes.
Come on.
33 episodes in, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
We've got there. And the final thing, of course, we do is we all rate this episode out of 10 scutters. So, Miles, how many scutters out of 10 would you give this? And you can have 0.5 if you wish.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like to.
I mean, it's a very well-loved episode. It's a fan favourite. In fact, it's the only episode, as far as I'm aware, that's won an award. I think this was the one that won an Emmy.
Right,
for,
okay.
Some sort of award at the Emmys. So yeah, it's very well liked. It's it's a high up one on my list, but it's not my absolute favourite. So I'm going to go an 8. I'm going to go 8 scutters out of 10.
Nice.
I think that it's very, very good, but there are other episodes which sort of pit the post for me. So
That's fair, man.
Out of interest,
Eight
are they
seems like a
episodes
good
that have
one for
come
me.
before this one, or ones that come afterwards that would pip it?
A good mix. I mean, like I say, Series 6 is one of my favourite series, as is Series 5, which has just come before. So it's, in within that kind of area, Legion's one of my top ones. So obviously that's just come just before.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8 scutters is the sort of what I'm going to plump for. Maybe, actually, you know what? I'm changing it. 8.5. Let's go 8.5.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, solid score. Well, Phil, are you placing it that highly as well?
I'm placing it higher, in fact. I'm going for a 9.5. This is, I can't remember...
Okay.
the ones that I know, there are other ones that potentially are higher, but I because I haven't seen them in a decade, I'm gonna need to rewatch them to know if they are higher. So I still want to leave that gap there just in case. But there isn't really anything. I can't think of anything negative to say about this episode. So it's really
Sure.
just kind of like leaving space for something that might be even better. Because I really did enjoy this episode. It's one of my favorites, definitely.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm actually going with Miles on this one. I'm giving it an 8.5. Just a really solid episode. Lots of great comedy, great scenarios. Love the whole Western take of it. I'm constantly amazed by this series in particular, because I read when I was looking at the synopsis a few weeks ago that apparently this series was rushed in a way. Like, it was something to do with the BBC wanted, after series 5, they wanted like more episodes as soon as possible. And the creative team would get, as you'd expect, maybe getting a bit burnt out or whatever. So they rushed like writing them or putting them to screen, whatever. But
and even making them as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the later episodes, if I remember rightly, I won't spoil anything, but it was so rushed that they have cue cards and they're reading their lines of some of that. So that is at the extent of how rushed it gets in this series, and yet it is a fan favourite.
I was going to
So it's
say,
amazing.
yeah. Because
Maybe that pressure is what does it.
Some
Maybe
people work
that's
well
how
under
it
Maybe,
pressure.
because that
You know,
was...
I did all of my university essays the night before they were due in. I mean, granted, I didn't get
so did
amazing
I,
scores on them, but
No, it's just I'm impressed with it so far, this series, because like you said, I'd read that it'd been rushed. I read that people were feeling burnt out, but so far, but people say it's a fan favorite, and for the most part, I've been quite happy with it so far. So long may that continue. We've got 3 episodes left. And you can all tune in for those over the next few weeks as we continue our Red Dwarf journey. But before we go, Miles, first and foremost, mate, thank you for joining us on Everybody's Dead Dave. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you. It's been such fun chatting to you guys about the boys from the Dwarf. It's
boys
just
from the
great
Dwarf.
It's just been great.
Dwarf.
It's been great for those listening
We're doing
on
the
audio.
hand.
We're doing
the sign, yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's been great. I really love getting the chance to chat about this program. As I said, it's a really, really big comfort show for me. So cheers for having me on, guys.
Not a
It's
problem.
been great fun. If you ever need me to come back, just let me know.
Oh, well,
Unless it's for Kryten TV.
Okay.
I'll be,
well, just for that, I think we might get you back for that. So just go,
No.
whichever one that is in the future. But before you go, though, Miles, please feel free to tell people listening where they can find you and your work on the internet.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've got my main sort of source is my YouTube channel, Tailored Vision. That's Taylor, as in my name, apostrophe D, Vision.
Yeah.
Always an awkward one to get people to spell. And you can also find me on Twitter at Tailored Vision, or one word. So yeah, just follow me for ramblings on mainly Doctor Who. But if that's your sort of thing, then please do check it out.
Awesome. Well, there folks, go subscribe to Miles, go and follow me on Twitter. And Phil, what about you? Where can the folks find you on the internet?
well, if you're not watching the squiggly line that's across the screen on the YouTube version of this podcast, then check out my YouTube channel, which is just my name. It's Philip Hawkins, 1 L in Philip. The avatar is currently a picture of me standing in front of some TARDIS Randalls, because I too talk a lot about Doctor Who. I think that's something we all have in common on,
Yes,
on this
yeah.
podcast.
Yeah,
We
I think we're all
seem to
guilty
talk
of
about
that.
Doctor Who a lot. But I do talk about other things as well: MCU, Star Trek, basically any geeky pop culture that I enjoy. What about yourself, Adam? Where can people find
Myself, as we've said, I also like this little program that people keep talking about called Doctor Who. So I do videos on that and a variety of other things on my channel, just Adam Martyn with a Y. You can find me there. And just on Twitter, Adam Martyn AMTV for daily ramblings, memes, GIFs, whatever I feel like. But yeah. And on Twitter, you should definitely follow the podcast Twitter that we have, which is at AllDeadDavePod for updates on the show, upcoming guests like Miles here, and just general Red Dwarf goodness. So yeah, go and follow us there. And yeah, thank you for listening. We will see you next time for episode 4, which I believe is Emo Hawk or Polymorph 2, which is a very intriguing title.
Our first
so I can't
sequel.
I can't wait to delve into that next week. But in the meantime, Miles, mate, thank you once again.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
No worries. And for everyone listening, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.